A poor black farmer walks into a private jet hangar, and instantly becomes the target of racism and humiliation. Billionaires laugh at his torn clothes, mock his rough hands, and treat him like he doesn't belong. But what happens next will leave everyone in shock, because this farmer is about to turn their laughter into silence. This is the unbelievable story. Black farmer faces racism and humiliation buying a jet, a shocking turn of events. "Who let this man in here?" a sharp, mocking voice sneered, echoing across the shiny private jet hangar. Dozens of heads turned instantly. Inside the vast space filled with polished floors, gleaming lights, and rows of luxury jets, the crowd of billionaires, investors, and executives in their sharp suits and designer dresses shifted their gaze toward the entrance. And then they saw him. A man who looked like he had walked straight out of a dusty village road, not into a world of luxury. He was a black farmer. His shirt was torn and hung loosely from his shoulders, stained from years of fieldwork. His straw hat, frayed and weathered, sat awkwardly on his head, casting a shadow over his tired but determined eyes. On his back was a heavy sack, worn and patched from years of use. His darkened skin bore the marks of long hours spent under the scorching sun, and his hands were rough, covered in calluses that told the story of endless hard labor. The sight of him in this place, among polished marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and private jets worth millions, was so unexpected that some in the crowd actually gasped. Others laughed. A few simply whispered to each other, eyebrows raised in disbelief. This man's name was Samuel. For decades, he had lived the life of a simple farmer. His days started before sunrise and ended long after dark. He tilled his land, planted crops, tended to his animals, and carried baskets of vegetables and grains to the local market. Everyone in his small town knew him as the hard-working farmer who lived humbly, who dressed simply, who never complained but never seemed to escape poverty either. To the wealthy crowd watching him now, Samuel was nothing more than the poor farmer. Someone who didn't belong here. Someone whose presence felt almost like an insult to their exclusive world of private jets, champagne, and power deals. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew why Samuel had come. None of them could have guessed that today, in this very hangar, he was about to change their perception of him, and of themselves, forever. As Samuel walked slowly, each step echoing across the hangar, murmurs began to spread through the gathering. "Is he lost?" one woman whispered to her friend. "Did he sneak in?" another man asked. "Maybe he's here to clean the floors," someone joked, and a ripple of laughter followed. The cruel amusement grew louder when a wealthy businessman in a navy blue suit stepped forward. His golden cufflinks sparkled under the lights as he pointed at Samuel. His smirk widened, and with a voice dripping with arrogance, he said, "This place is for buyers, not beggars." The crowd chuckled. A few people clapped lightly as if the man's insult were some kind of performance. The humiliation was sharp, loud, and cutting. Yet Samuel did not react. He didn't flinch. He didn't look down in shame. He didn't hurry to leave, even as dozens of eyes pierced him with scorn. Instead, he lifted his chin slightly and continued walking, each step steady, deliberate, and filled with an unspoken strength. The whispers grew harsher as he moved closer to the jet that gleamed under the hangar lights. "Does he even know what that costs?" someone mocked. "Maybe he's here to beg for a photo," another suggested. "He probably came to ask for leftover food," a woman in diamonds sneered, her laughter sharp. But Samuel ignored it all. His eyes never strayed from the jet. To him, this wasn't just a plane. It was a vision. A dream he had worked silently toward for years, without ever telling anyone. Every grain of wheat he harvested, every crop he sold, every sacrifice he made, it had all brought him to this moment. He remembered the countless nights sitting under a flickering lamp, studying brochures and manuals about aviation, calculating costs, and planning his future while the world around him dismissed him as nothing more than a poor farmer. He remembered the years of saving, investing wisely, and saying no to comfort so he could say yes to something greater. And now, here he was, standing in front of the very thing he had dreamed of. The laughter still rang in his ears, but Samuel's heart was calm. His silence wasn't weakness, it was power. A quiet strength that none of these billionaires, who had always inherited their wealth or flaunted it without effort, could ever understand. As he finally stopped a few feet away from the private jet, he raised his head. His eyes met the salesman's, who looked visibly uncomfortable. The man hesitated, torn between his duty to treat Samuel as a potential customer and the pressure of the wealthy crowd mocking him. But before the salesman could speak, Samuel's deep, calm voice broke through the noise. "I came here to buy," he said firmly. "Not to beg. Show me the jet." The laughter froze. The hangar went silent. Even the arrogant businessman in the navy blue suit blinked in shock, his smirk fading for the first time. The farmer had just shattered every assumption in the room with a single sentence. "Look at his clothes," one woman whispered loudly enough for others to hear. Her diamond necklace sparkled under the lights as she covered her mouth to laugh. "He doesn't even own proper shoes, and he's standing next to a jet." Another man, tall with slick-back hair and a golden watch that seemed more expensive than most people's houses, smirked as he raised his glass of champagne. "Can you imagine?" he said mockingly. "A farmer trying to buy a private jet? What's he going to pay with, bags of corn? Chickens? Maybe a few goats?" The group around him burst into laughter. Their chuckles echoed through the hangar like cruel music. A few even clapped their hands as if mocking Samuel were entertainment. But the humiliation didn't stop there. One young billionaire, barely in his 30s, pulled out his phone and started recording. "This is going to go viral," he joked. "Poor farmer comes to buy a jet, wait until social media sees this." He zoomed in on Samuel's worn-out sack and his straw hat, shaking his head as if the whole thing were a comedy show. The laughter grew louder, spreading through the crowd. Some people tried to whisper politely, but most didn't bother hiding their amusement. To them, Samuel was nothing more than an intruder, a man too poor and too dirty to even belong in the same room as them. Samuel, however, stood still. His calm, steady expression didn't change. His eyes were fixed on the jet, and his mind was far away from the mockery. But the crowd couldn't understand his silence. They mistook it for weakness. "Maybe he wandered in here looking for scraps," one man in a white tuxedo sneered. "Hey, old man, the kitchen's at the back, not here." Laughter exploded again, sharp and piercing. A woman in a sleek black dress leaned close to her friend and whispered, "Doesn't he smell of dirt? How could security even let him in here?" Samuel's heart pounded in his chest, but not with anger, no, with determination. He had endured worse than laughter before. He had worked through storms, hunger, and endless nights of struggle. Words couldn't break him now. Meanwhile, the jet salesman shifted uncomfortably on his feet. He could feel the mocking eyes of the wealthy buyers pressuring him to dismiss Samuel, but there was something about the farmer's presence, his quiet strength, that made him hesitate. Still, the billionaires weren't finished. One of them, the man in the navy blue suit with golden cufflinks, the same one who had mocked Samuel earlier, stepped forward again. His voice boomed with arrogance, commanding the room's attention. "This is ridiculous," he said, pointing directly at Samuel. "This is a place for business, for people who belong here. This man doesn't belong. He should be thrown out." The crowd cheered in agreement, as though he were some kind of leader. "That's right," someone shouted. "Send him back to the farm where he came from." But Samuel didn't move. He slowly turned his head toward the businessman, his gaze calm yet unshakable. For the first time, a flicker of unease appeared on the man's face. It was as if Samuel's steady eyes carried a weight he couldn't explain. The laughter began to fade slightly, though whispers still buzzed in the air. Then Samuel finally spoke, his voice deep and strong enough to silence the room. "I am not here for your jokes. I am not here for your approval. I came for one reason, to buy this jet." His words fell heavy in the air, slicing through the mockery like a blade. The billionaires who had been laughing now exchanged uneasy glances. Some scoffed, unwilling to believe him. Others simply stared, surprised that the man they thought was powerless could speak with such certainty. The businessman in the navy suit forced a laugh. "Buy this jet? You? Don't make me laugh. Do you even know how much this costs? Samuel's eyes didn't waver. I know exactly how much it costs. More than you think I can afford. But less than the value of the work I have done with my hands, my land, and my life. The hanger grew silent. For the first time, the laughter had stopped, not because Samuel had joined it, but because he had shattered it with the power of his words. The billionaires had mocked him, pointed fingers at him, and tried to strip him of dignity. But instead of crumbling, Samuel stood taller than ever. And deep down, even those who laughed the loudest were beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this farmer wasn't the fool they thought he was. The salesman cleared his throat nervously, caught between the arrogant laughter of the billionaires and the quiet strength of Samuel's presence. After a long pause, he finally gestured toward the gleaming white jet and said, "All right, sir, let me show you inside." A ripple of disbelief spread through the crowd. The wealthy guests trailed behind, smirking and whispering as Samuel stepped toward the jet. Maybe he just wants a picture for his little farmhouse, one man joked. Or maybe he's never even seen leather seats before, another added. But Samuel ignored every word. When he climbed into the jet, something remarkable happened. His eyes didn't widen in shock the way the billionaires expected. He didn't stumble around, gawking at the luxury. Instead, he walked with steady steps, studying every detail with calm precision. The interior sparkled with polished wood, cream-colored leather seats, and gold-plated fixtures. But Samuel didn't ask about the champagne holders or the entertainment system like most buyers did. Instead, his questions stunned the salesman. "What's the maximum cargo weight this jet can handle?" Samuel asked firmly. The salesman blinked. Cargo weight? Well, it can handle. And the fuel efficiency? How far can it fly without refueling? Samuel continued. The laughter outside the cabin quieted. The billionaires exchanged glances. Samuel asked about maintenance costs, engine durability, and even specific flight routes that could connect farming regions to larger markets. His knowledge was sharp, practical, and far beyond what anyone expected from a poor farmer. The salesman was taken aback. Most billionaires care only about luxury and status symbols. But this man, this farmer, knew exactly what he was talking about. Finally, the salesman asked in disbelief, "Where did you learn all of this?" Samuel smiled faintly, his eyes glinting with pride. "On my farm. While others wasted time laughing at me, I studied. I planned. I worked. I know what I need, and I know what this jet can do for my people." For the first time, the hangar grew quiet. The same crowd that had mocked him now stared in stunned silence. The poor farmer they had ridiculed was no fool. He was a man with vision, knowledge, and a plan bigger than their laughter. The silence in the hangar was heavy, almost uncomfortable. For the first time since Samuel walked in, the laughter had stopped. The billionaires, who only moments ago mocked him, now shifted uneasily, whispering to each other. But one man couldn't let it go. The businessman in the navy blue suit with golden cufflinks, the loudest critic of them all, stepped forward again, his face red with arrogance. He jabbed a finger toward Samuel. "Enough of this nonsense," he barked. "You're wasting everyone's time. You think because you asked a few smart questions, you suddenly belong here? No, old man. This is where real money speaks. Show us your pockets. Show us how much you really have." The crowd erupted in agreement. "Yes, prove it," someone shouted. "Let's see how rich this farmer really is." They laughed again, though weaker this time, trying to cover their nervousness with cruelty. Some even pulled out their phones, eager to record what they thought would be Samuel's ultimate humiliation. But Samuel didn't look flustered. He didn't fumble or hesitate. Instead, he calmly reached behind his back, into the worn-out sack he had carried in with him. "Here it comes," one billionaire snickered. "He's going to pull out a bag of potatoes." The crowd laughed. But their laughter died instantly. Because Samuel did not pull out food or scraps, he pulled out a thick leather folder. He opened it slowly, revealing neatly stacked documents inside. With steady hands, he laid them out on the polished table inside the jet. Bank statements. Property deeds. Investment certificates. And on top of them all, a cashier's check, written for the full price of the jet. The salesman gasped audibly, his eyes widening. He picked up the check, studied it closely, and then looked back at Samuel in disbelief. It was real. It was valid. And it was enough to purchase the jet outright, without loans, without financing, without hesitation. The billionaires froze. Their smirks vanished. Their phones, once raised to record mockery, now trembled in their hands. Samuel's voice was calm but carried power, resonating through the hangar. All my life, you judged me by my clothes, my skin, and my work. You laughed at my hands because they are rough. But these hands have built something real. These hands fed families, built schools, and gave life to barren land. And now, these same hands will buy this jet. The businessman in the navy suit sputtered, his arrogance crumbling. That can't be possible. Samuel turned to him, his eyes steady and sharp. Farmers feed the world. Without us, your tables are empty, your markets are dry, your luxuries mean nothing. You call me poor, but I carry the wealth of the land. You may wear fine suits, but I wear the proof of honest work. And today, that work speaks louder than your laughter. A hush fell over the hangar. No one dared to laugh now. The power had shifted completely. For the first time, the so-called poor farmer wasn't the one being judged, he was the one teaching a lesson. The sound of silence filled the hangar, heavier than the echoes of laughter that had once mocked Samuel. Every eye was fixed on him, on the rough farmer who had just turned their world upside down. The check on the table glistened under the bright lights like a weapon that had slain arrogance in a single strike. The salesman, still stunned, quickly gathered his composure. With shaking hands, he bowed slightly toward Samuel. Sir, he said with respect, his earlier hesitation gone, we would be honored to complete this transaction. Samuel nodded calmly. Prepare the papers. I don't want delays. The words hit the billionaires like thunder. Only minutes ago, they were mocking him as a beggar. Now they were watching him command respect like a true king. Some of them looked down at their shoes, ashamed. Others stared in disbelief, their arrogance shattered. And a few still clenched their fists in anger, unable to accept what they had just witnessed. The man in the navy blue suit, the loudest of them all, stepped forward one last time. But this time his voice lacked the confidence it once carried. How? How is this possible? You're just a farmer. Samuel turned to face him, his expression calm yet unshakable. Yes, he said firmly. I am a farmer. A farmer who worked while you laughed. A farmer who invested while you wasted. A farmer who dreamed while you mocked. You see only rags, but I see the result of every seed I planted, every harvest I sold, every sacrifice I made. My wealth may not show on my clothes, but it grows in silence, until the day it speaks louder than your pride. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Samuel walked slowly toward the jet, running his hand across the smooth metal surface. This plane is not for luxury. It is not for showing off. It is for purpose. With this jet, I will take produce from my farm, and the farms of hundreds of others like me, to markets across the country. No more spoiled crops. No more middlemen stealing our profit. Farmers will finally get what they deserve. His voice grew stronger, his words echoing with vision. This is not just my victory. This is proof that hard work, faith, and determination can rise higher than arrogance, higher than prejudice, higher than the walls built to keep people like me out. The salesman, now fully respectful, handed Samuel a pen. The contracts were ready. With a steady hand, Samuel signed his name, and just like that, the deal was sealed. The poor farmer had become the proud owner of a private jet. The billionaires stood frozen. The same men and women who had laughed at him now had no words. Some turned away in shame. Others stared at him with newfound respect. And the man in the navy suit? He simply lowered his head, his pride broken, his arrogance defeated. Samuel turned back to the crowd one final time. His eyes scanned the room, meeting the stares of those who had mocked him. And in a voice that was both calm and commanding, he said, "Never judge a man by his clothes. Never laugh at a man because of his skin or his work. Respect is not in what you see, it is in what a person has built with their hands, their heart, and their sacrifice. Today, you mocked a farmer. But tomorrow, you will see that farmers fly higher than you ever imagined." With those words, Samuel stepped into his jet. The engines roared to life, powerful and unstoppable. As the plane prepared for takeoff, the billionaires could only watch, their arrogance crushed under the weight of truth. And when Samuel's jet lifted into the sky, it carried more than just one man, it carried the dream of every farmer who had ever been underestimated. The man they laughed at was now the man flying above them all. And that day, the farmer taught the world a lesson: never judge a man by what he wears, but by the strength of his work and the vision of his heart. If you enjoyed this powerful story, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that will leave you speechless. Until next time, stay inspired.